So it may not be a Monday, but we're here on a fine Tuesday evening to talk about all things week one in college football. I'm joined by, as always, Jance Sports. Jance, before we get into this, where can the people find you?
Man, you can find me on Twitter at Jan716. YouTube channel is Jan Sports. Of course, you want to catch some college football reactions, college football breakaways, college football takeaways, all that type of jazz. You can check me over there, and then also Buffalo Fan Base Sports every Tuesday for the most part at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard. You can find me there with my co-host Kari Demos.
Yeah, awesome, man. And you said the key word, man, takeaways. Week one is in the books, and there was so much excitement. What were your key takeaways from week one?
Well, Georgia is still Georgia's still that team, man. Georgia's still, the defending national champion, man. They are just that team. Their offense, I said they were going to get better offensively. They are extremely loaded at pretty much everywhere. Defensively, they didn't skip a beat, and that's just the cadence of just all those 5 and 4 star talent and the phenomenal coaching staff that Kirby Smart continuously to put in together. So yeah, Kirby Smart has actually reached that Alabama status of just no matter no matter how many players continue to leave, whether it's 2021 when 10 players were drafted, or 2021 or the following year where they ended up losing 15 players, Georgia continues to be arguably 1A or 1A or 1B with Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk. I've seen people say, well, oh, maybe Oregon wasn't that good. Maybe that is the case. Maybe that is. But it's too early to tell just yet, because the one thing we do know is that was a competent Oregon squad from a year ago, right? Like, I'm not saying that Oregon squad was a world-beating squad. I'm saying they were a competent football team. Dan Lanning has familiarity with Georgia, and they've got some talented pieces on that Oregon Ducks team, and it didn't seem to matter. I mean, they got flat out eviscerated. Now, the SEC East has a lot of intrigue in it, and I think that's going to be great for Georgia this year. Jance, can you think of a time in the previous few years where you've been excited for the East as you have been this season?
I haven't been excited for the East since probably 2011 or 2012, back when you had 3 teams from the East that were competing for the division. I mean, that's when South Carolina was considered a really, really big power. They were winning continuously 10, 11 games, and they were having winning streaks against Clemson. So it's been a while. It's been a while since the SC East was just that good and that deep. But yeah, man, I mean, the fact that Florida is extremely competitive. We still consider Kentucky to still be a pretty solid team over there. Obviously, Georgia's the big powerhouse, but yeah, I mean, Florida for the most part with Anthony Richardson, that could be something right there. That obviously beating Utah. Utah's in a very similar boat where they did lose a lot of players, but they also have a lot of impactful players coming back to their team. So Florida, for the most part, kind of showed that there's just no pushover, and that it's going to be that this division is going to be a little more competitive. And of course, obviously, Spencer Rattler didn't have the best game, but we are expecting him to get better over there at South Carolina.
Yeah, if you're expecting perfection in week one of college football, you're looking for the wrong thing, right? And I think that the fan and all of us expects perfection. It's week one. So many moving parts. And specifically, I'm so glad you brought up Florida, because that was such a good game. Now, we can have all the conversations in the world about whether or not Utah should have ran the ball at the end of the game. The one thing I can tell you is that Florida was given an opportunity and seized it. And in football, we're talking about a game of inches and opportunity. Can you seize the opportunity presented in front of you? Florida was able to do it. I was very impressed with their win. I think that Anthony Richardson is an exciting player in college football. If their passing game continues to develop, they've got some athletes at running back, but I'm just very excited for Billy Napier in his first season. Now, staying in the SEC, because Jonathan has asked us a question here that we need to get to. Is Florida State better or LSU just not good? My answer to the question is yes. Jance, what's yours?
I just LSU, man, because I had to go back and we watched the tape. Both teams, again, I talked about it with Fanatic Perspective with Steven over there. Both teams just wanted to lose the game. It just seemed like special teams were both a mess. Florida State blocked a couple of punt kicks, but then literally, before Florida State could literally just clinch the game away, they decided to fumble on the goal line. And then LSU just made a lot of just mental errors. I mean, whether if it's the alley gate targeting, which that is literally the definition of targeting right there, if you want to see a prime example of it, whether it was just the offensive line, as far as just the amount of missed assignments, which was a problem last year, the receivers and Jaden Daniels not really forming that continuity as far as game time goes, defense. I mean, just too many mistakes, way too many mistakes on both teams' part. So I think that this is just a prime example of both programs are still in that rebuilding stage. I don't think that any team should be ranked literally after that game. Both teams are just in a rebuilding stage. Now, again, it was a fun and very entertaining game, no doubt about it. But at the same time, anyone that was watching that game should probably, definitely should know that, yeah, these two teams are definitely nowhere near top 25 status, in my opinion. But I will say that Florida State is on the right track right now because those players are, you can tell compared to last year, the intensity and the momentum of that program is swinging in the right direction.
Yeah, Hacker makes a great point here. It was so weird, and I think you perfectly summarized it, man. I was watching that stream with you and Fanatic, and I heard you talking about this, and I loved it. Both teams were playing to lose the game as opposed to win the game. One team just wanted the outcome a little bit more than the other. Interestingly enough, about LSU, I think coming into the season, you and I were actually kind of weary about LSU, not thinking they were going to be like that. We thought that defensive line would be able to at least have them coast through a large percentage of the season to where they could just win games off the talent they have. That's not at all what we saw. I've been really excited to see what Jaden Daniels looks like. He came from so much chaos at Arizona State. Not the outing you would like if you're Daniels, but the season is long. There's still a long ways to go. The one thing we did learn, LSU is in a much worse position than I had previously realized.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me after that national championship season that they had in 2019, if LSU was going to be at this point, I would just think you're crazy. And it's not because of, even with everything that was going on with Ed Orgeron, the rumors that we were hearing off the offseason, I'm still thinking to myself, well, LSU still has a top 3 nationally talented football squad. I mean, when you look at the amount of, even last year when they went to, I believe, 6-6 or 6-7 or somewhere on the mark, they still had 10 NFL draft picks. So this is, they're one of the most talented teams, if not one, at least top 3 talented teams right now in college football. If you want to make the argument with Ohio State, that's fine. But they are up there, and
they're certainly up there.
Yeah, that program is so dysfunctional, like right at this moment, that it is really impacting their program. And yet somehow, in some way, Brian Kelly continues to recruit at a high level with that coaching staff with them. I don't know if that game from Sunday is going to impact their recruiting class. Maybe they can make a stronger. Yeah, maybe they can make a stronger pitch and say, listen, you see where our program's at. You see our talent right now. We have it, but we need more. And maybe they can potentially use that as a recruiting pitch to get the players to continuously come and play for the university, for Louisiana State University. But just overall wise, I never would have thought that this program 3 years ago would be at this point with all the talent that is, national championship caliber talent. And, again, we now have to make the argument that, maybe they're probably going to win 6 or 7 games again.
Jonathan asked the question. Plenty of talent. So is it a culture issue? I think the answer has to be yes, right? And I don't pretend to know the extent of the cultural issues at LSU, but it's very obvious. How many players, until a reason is given otherwise, maybe there's a perfectly justifiable reason, how many players have scrubbed their Instagrams, Twitters of everything LSU after that game? Yeah. And we're not talking the second or third string wide receiver. We're talking some of the most premier players in all of college football scrubbing the memorabilia from their social media accounts.
You can just tell by the demeanor of the, like, if you were watching the game and they kept showing the sideline, like, you can just show, you can just tell that team is just not right. I've seen a lot of games with Kayshon Boutte. I've never seen him look like that in my life. He looked like he did not want to be. He looked like he was mentally drained. He looked like he was maybe arguing with some coaches. He looked like he just simply did not want to be there. And Kayshon Boutte, he had opportunities to make some plays and he didn't really do it. Now again, that could be because maybe he's feeling down himself. But it's just that program has a lot. I agree with Jonathan. I think it's a lot of dysfunction culturally wise. It's just something's not right. Something's not right there. And from the rumors that's been going on with Brian Kelly yelling, pretty much telling off his players and his players, yelling back. And I don't know if those rumors are true, but from what I was able to see Sunday night, when the camera is showing those players and just the way that they look, how the demeanor looked in that game, so something is not right. Something's not right. And who knows? Maybe we need a clean sweep of all Ed Orgeron's players, and Brian Kelly needs to bring in his own players in for LSU to be right.
Maybe. And look, to end this, I completely agree with 850 here. When you're in that position, you go for two. You've been struggling all game. At least tell your team, I'm putting faith in you. I know whether we get it or not is irrelevant. I know we can get it. In my opinion, Brian Kelly coached scared. And scared money doesn't make money. That's one thing I've always been told. Whatever field you want to be in, scared money doesn't make money. You got to take risks. You got to take chances. Kelly refused to do that. And ultimately, I don't know that 2-point play lost him the game. But Kane, to your point, we can certainly say it didn't win them the game. Maybe they don't get it. I don't know. But the fact that you didn't go for it, I personally disagree with. I don't pretend to be a savant for offensive or defensive play calling, but just logically, it seems to make the most sense to go for it. I want to now talk about a team that everything looked like it went right on Saturday, and that was the Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, they were humming. Some things that need to be worked on. What was your takeaway from Alabama's game?
It was everything. It was everything that I expected it to be. It was pretty much the same. The same strengths, and then some of those questions that we had in the offseason. It's still some things that we still need to see. And obviously, we have Texas this week, and we're going to Austin. College game day is going to be there. And it's going to be a test as far as skill position players, and obviously the talent's going to be way better than compared to Utah State. But Utah State wasn't a bad team, so I was pretty happy with the performance overall. I look at the offensive line. We did struggle a little bit with the inside stunts in the run game. Kendall Randolph did not have, Kendall Randolph filling in for Javon Cohen did not really have the strongest game in the world. Tyler Steen as well. I watched a little bit, went back a little bit. Tyler Steen also didn't have the best game in the world as well. And maybe, whether if it's a continuity issue or not, that is something that we need fixed, because Bryce Young, as great of the game as he had, there were some moments where, why is he's getting pressured a little bit too much, right? Even though we had over 273 yards rushing in the game, a little earlier in the game, we couldn't, our Jahmyr Gibbs and McKellen, these guys were getting in the backfield. And so, I would love to see the offensive line improve. Obviously Texas will be a pretty solid test, and hopefully we can get things going, but it was a little bit of a concern. The fact that one of the biggest issues, if not the biggest issue, we didn't win that national championship, was because the offensive line simply got dominated by Georgia. And then you look at the other games from last year, whether it's the Florida game in the second half, the LSU game, the Auburn game, the A&M game, where the offensive line simply just could not hold their own, and Bryce Young had to simply make those plays. He simply had to improvise as quick as possible. I am hoping that we don't have to go down that road like we did last year.
Yeah, it was not. Look, it's one of those things where I don't know how to feel. Obviously, It wasn't what you wanted to see, but it is game one. And I've kept saying for every team, if you're expecting perfection game one, you're probably looking for the wrong thing. Do I think it can improve? Yes. But that being said, if you were to tab anything that Bama needs to continue progressing on, it would be that offensive line. I think that's probably something that's agreed upon. One area I was vindicated, because you've heard me talk about it all summer long. I've said this wide receiver core for Alabama has got supreme talent. They just don't have experience. Fast forward, that's exactly what we saw, Jance. These freshmen for Alabama, they got some dudes at wide receiver. Kobe Prentice. Then you had Law come in and play. Isaiah Bond. Aaron Anderson is a name everybody in chat who, when he came in, Nick Saban of all people signaled Aaron Anderson and Kendrick Law, two true freshmen who enrolled early, and said they know what it takes to be successful as freshmen. If you listen to Saban at the rate that Jance and I do, and I'm sure plenty of hardcore Bama fans and hardcore college football fans in here do, that's not a compliment he gives often. That's the one thing he always says, oh, this guy is supremely talented. He just has to learn what it takes to be successful. Saban preaches that. He said it about countless players. Here come these two true freshmen, and it's the opposite. It's these guys are supremely talented, and they know how to win. This wide receiver group, I am so excited to see how they continue to progress. Who stood out the most to you in that aspect?
Kobe Prentice. I mean, you gotta just say a little bit, man. But Kobe Prentice balled out, man. I was extremely impressed with kind of how he handled himself in the offense. He looked comfortable, looked extremely comfortable, did not
Yeah.
waver one bit. Again, Kendrick Law went in there. He took a Jalen Milroe kind of let him on a little bit. Should have let him on a little earlier, but he took a big hit, and Kendrick Law kind of showed his toughness. Isaiah Bond had I think around 40-yard reception that was called back a little bit because of the block in the back, but we saw a lot of glimpses of why Nick Saban are pretty much praising this class. Jaheim Oates at the defensive line I thought he was solid. I thought he was very solid. He was co-starting with DJ Dale, but I thought he was extremely solid as well in that aspect. So
I think he's got the highest ceiling personally.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe a hot take, but
and then you look at the work rate, man. I mean, the kid lost 45 to 50 pounds. I mean that kid has an extremely hard work rate, man. So I'm just excited overall to see this freshman class play. I still don't even think. Did Jeremiah Alexander, did he play in this game? I don't think he played in this game.
I actually don't know if he played. I'll tell you one moment that really fired me up. Kobe Prentice blocking was impressive. Jonathan, you're 100% right. Kendrick Law laid the hammer down on one block. I mean, he flat out smacked somebody. I lost my mind when he flat out, as a true freshman, first game, he leveled some dude. These freshman wide receiver obviously still need to progress. They're not there yet, but the talent is there. I'm very, very excited. Is there any other games in the SEC we need to talk about before we send it over to our resident Oklahoma fan to give us the temperature on the Oklahoma Sooners?
Oh, you guys already talked about LSU and Florida State, right?
Yes. Mark, I completely agree.
Yeah, that was that was a train wreck. I don't know. Is Florida State back? I guess that's the only question I have about that game.
We actually had it was funny you said that. We had a whole conversation about that. Jonathan actually asked, is it bad LSU or good Florida State? And I just answered him yes. Because what do you take away from that, right? Like, Brian Kelly coached to lose that game. Maybe not coach to lose. Maybe that's harsh, but he certainly didn't coach to win. I can bet every dollar I have he didn't coach to win. So, I mean, it was tough, man. LSU will be fine in the long run because it's LSU. Louisiana is home to so much talent, and they don't have anybody in their state to compete with them, right? Oklahoma has Oklahoma State. Texas has God knows every college in the state of Texas coming after their recruits. Alabama has Auburn. LSU gets the whole of Louisiana really to themselves. There's, University of Louisiana, that's a very good football team, but for Power 5. If there was any other team I'd want to quickly get y'all's opinions on, what did you think of Texas A&M?
So for me, like I said, I mean, it's week one, I guess. It's week one, but man, I mean, to me, they did not look impressive. They did not look like a top 10 squadron. I thought their offensive line definitely underachieved in that game. I thought that Sam Houston State actually did a pretty solid job, at least defending the run. Haynes King, I thought was okay for the most part. He made some mistakes. He also made some big plays. But then again, when you look at the amount of busted coverages that Sam Houston State secondary had, I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, Haynes King literally could have had over 500 yards if you go back and watch the game and just watch so many, a lot of the missed assignments that secondary had. So, the A&M defense, again, they did their job. I think they did the best they could in that particular game. You saw a lot of true freshmen play. I think around 11 of those guys played. So that's great. Yeah, that's great for them because they're going to get the experience. And, that's, by the time they play Alabama, are these a lot of these kids going to be ready? Because I talked about this a lot especially on the defensive line, when you lose around 90% of your sack production and Michael Clemens and Tyree Johnson and Jaden Tevy and Marvin Leal, when you lose a lot of those dudes, guys that have heavily contributed to that defensive line and the success of A&M for 3 out of the last 4 years, that is going to, I don't care who you are, that's going to be extremely hard to replicate unless you're Georgia or Alabama, right? We've seen Ohio State last year failed at that type of assignment as far as trying to replicate the amount of production that their defense had the previous year with Chase Young and those guys. So for me personally, again, A&M, from what I was able to see, 31 points is not that impressive against Sam Houston State compared to what Alabama did against against a Utah State team that is far better. I thought there were better performances. I thought Oklahoma had a much better performance against UTEP. I just, for me personally, I wasn't impressed about A&M.
Yeah, Chris.
A&M will go as far as Haynes King can take them, Max Johnson,
Love that.
whoever the quarterback is. One of the problems with them is that offensively, they have the star power, they have the firepower. However, the offensive line didn't look that great during that game. And then Haynes King, he makes some bonehead decisions. One of the things they're going to have to, excuse me, a point of interest, a game of interest. I got to see them against Miami. I got to see what they're going
Love
to
that.
do.
I
That's
got to see them
going
against
to,
Appalachian State.
yeah, that game. You said what?
Appalachian State.
Appalachian State is going to test them. I think that they should be able to prevail in that game. Appalachian State is going to test them, but Miami is going to be their true test. It's going to be that's going to tell. That's going to be a game that tells us a lot. I was not convinced that they were between them and Clemson. I wasn't really convinced that they were an AP top 10 team at this point in time in the season. I think that they're going to struggle against Alabama. I don't know what was in the water, or he must have had some of that secret water, that good water off of Space Jam that Calzada was drinking last year against Alabama. But I don't think that he left any for Haynes King. So I don't think that that's going to he's really going to have that big much of effect on that game. He's a good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback, but I don't think he's the quarterback for that team right there to get them to where they think they should be at the end of the season. It's going to be hard. I mean, Georgia and Alabama are not going anywhere, and the whole thing is that you don't have to play a perfect game to beat each team, but you got to play damn near close. And I don't know if Haynes King is going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. 2 games lightly. I just want to hear from y'all on, and then I want to pass the floor over to Chris to talk us through Oklahoma, who looked really inspired this weekend. First and foremost, what's the level of concern with Clemson? And then secondly, what were we thinking on the Notre Dame Ohio State game? Jance, I'll start with you.
I mean, Clemson looked the same. They literally looked the same from last year.
Exact same.
Elite defense. They didn't even really rush the ball that well against Georgia Tech, but for the most part, we're expecting that the run game is still going to be a lot better with led by Will Shipley. But their defense looks elite. Their defensive line looks like it's with argument with Georgia and Alabama to potentially be the best. I mean, Brian Brissett, Miles
Nick
Murphy,
Eason's doing a hell of a job there.
Yeah, it's Tyler Davis, Barrett Carter on the front. Trent Simpson looks like a madman as this hybrid player, man. It's just looking like Isaiah Simmons out there. I mean, Clemson looks ridiculous at the defensive side of the ball, but it's the quarterback play. And honestly, for me, I think that this literally could change. I think Clemson could be a top 4 contender easily if they simply would just play the quarterback from Westlake. If they simply would just take DJ Uiagalelei out and just simply put the quarterback, the name escaped me right now.
Cade Klubnik.
Yes, Cade Klubnik, right? If they simply would just put Cade in, because I've seen Cade the way he operated, and with the limited opportunities that he had, and that team looked completely different. It looked extremely efficient, looked extremely smooth, looked extremely fast, and he just looked like he was comfortable. He looked like he was ready for the moment. And I just watched DJ from the first snap of the game. He just looked like he was just not 100% there. So for me personally, I unless Clemson, because Clemson, they're easily right now a 10-win school, right? Easily a 10-win program. They can easily compete for the ACC. They might actually potentially make it to an ACC championship game. But as far as making it to the playoffs, as far as the top 4 school, we all know they have the talent. They have an elite defense. They got the side that can get them there. They just need, at this point, a serviceable quarterback. And I don't even know at this point, well, they do have that quarterback. I just don't know if Dabo Swinney is willing to start him. We all know, we see it in 2018, he was able to take Kelly Bryant, who is far better than where DJ Uiagalelei is at this point of his career. But he took Kelly Bryant after having a 400-yard, after having a phenomenal performance against Texas A&M to come back and win that game. What happened the following week? He started Trevor Lawrence after Trevor Lawrence had a bad game against A&M because he believed in the upside of Trevor Lawrence. He needs to do the same thing. It is clear as day that Cade is the better quarterback right now at this point. Again, I seen all I needed to see from DJ. Again, I know it's week 1, but I seen all.
Jance, I got to stop you there. No. We have not seen enough. 2 things, okay? Well, 3 things, okay? First off, DJ and the rest of those Clemson boys, as good as you're saying they've been, you're being a bit too generous with this Clemson team. Clemson struggled all the way up to about the third quarter, mid third quarter, with this Georgia Tech team. Georgia Tech was in that game for a long time, and they had some drives, they had some promise, but they couldn't deliver. That team right there has a pretty good quarterback, but you could tell they're still trying to get something going. I don't know how long they're going to be able to ride this wave, saying that Collins is now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ty. I believe that the Georgia Tech head coach is pretty much kind of at the end of his cycle or end of his run. Probably he's been there for 3 or 4 years now. Now, I will say this: the defense, the front seven looked good, but the DBs were kind of lost. Yeah. They were on the island. And then I would also say we can't rush. We can't be so quick to say, "Oh yeah, Klubnik is the answer," simply because we only saw him the last 5 minutes of the game. The game was already out of hand. You're playing against the twos and the threes. I'm sorry, everybody in the comments. I know people are going to disagree with me, but I don't know if I saw enough last night just from that small sample size to say, oh, yeah, he should be the one that supplants or that, takes that starting role from DJ. DJ didn't do anything great, but he didn't necessarily do anything bad in that game as well. He made some throws out there, and you saw the improvement. He's taking it serious. So I want to give him a chance at least until they get into ACC play, because their next two games are really against.
Do you think that case should potentially have an opportunity? Do you think the job should be up for grabs? Because again, you're right. DJ didn't really do anything particularly bad, but he didn't do anything extremely impressive. From what I see in that game and the same mistakes that hindered Clemson's offense to being, what they potentially could be, I saw the same mistakes. I saw a DJ who could not fill the pocket. I saw DJ continue to fail and go through his progressions. He was staring down receivers pretty easily, and he looked like he was panicking in the moment earlier on in the game. Now he did get better at the course, more specifically in the second half, but you don't want to be in a situation where the defense has to keep you in the game. That's what Clemson's defense was able to do. They kept them primarily in this game until obviously DJ was finally able to get that offense involved.
Well, I want to see if he could put up numbers against these two teams that he's going to be playing, Furman and the other team that they're going to be playing. I want to see if he could put up numbers against them, because one of the things, I haven't really said it all that much, but I meant to say it. One of the things I've been really interested about it's not with Clemson, it's not only the development of DJ going into this year, but how he will be able to, I guess, succeed without Tony Elliott. Does that make sense? Basically, what I'm trying to say is this right here. I think Tony Elliott was honestly kind of holding him back simply because the offense was just so damn archaic and it was basic. And I think that there were some things that were just really complicated about the offense, at least for him to grasp. And so I'm thinking that with the new OC or in-house OC, however Dalbo likes to go, I think that he will be better this year. But I think it's just way too early to literally give Klubnik the job. I think on a week-to-week basis we will see, but I don't necessarily know if this is especially in this day and era in college football, I don't necessarily know if this is as easy as a switch as the Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant switch was back then. Because I mean, you got obviously Kelly Bryant still ended up in the portal anyways, but I think he was trying to at least save his team or at least save his quarterbacks, because he knows that if one goes down, then we're having to stick with this other guy, and maybe that's not the best answer right now.
Yeah. It's going to be super interesting to see what develops. Now, I don't mean to cut this short, but I am fading pretty much in and out of consciousness right now. I tested positive for COVID this morning. I'm running 103-degree fever right now, so that's why I haven't been talking almost at all, because I'm just sweating up here. What were the biggest takeaways y'all had? Because Clemson is a team that we're going to just have to watch how they progress. There's no other way to put it right now. There's so many questions. I can't remember a year where Clemson started and I had more questions about a Dabo Swinney-led Clemson team. Last year, at least they started against Georgia, right? And we could all sit there and say, well, yeah, Georgia's probably really good, so we didn't know where it was. Look, I don't know that I think it's time to move off of DJ yet, but I can certainly say this. Whether it was because Cade was against the twos or the threes, I even sent it in our group chat last night. I'm not talking about quality of play. I'm talking about the way the rest of Clemson's team responded to Cade. They were fired up when he was in there. Like the team just had a bit of a different energy. Now, it could be because it was against 2s and 3s and people were excited to get their chance. We'll have to see. For Ohio State, I think we can all agree the biggest takeaway there is the offense will probably continue to progress at the same rate it did last year, but that Jim Knowles defense looks like it could be a major benefit to the Buckeyes. Do y'all pretty much well fall in line with that?
No.
Interesting.
Defensively, they'll be okay. That front seven is nasty. They still are trying to figure out their the back end of the defense with the secondary. I think the secondary is going to come along. I'm fine with the Ohio State defense, but Ty, what do we talk about? What was one word that I brought out last year for OU against Tulane, Nebraska, West Virginia, K-State, all those teams? What do we call it? Blueprint games. They were running that too high safety look. Notre Dame ran a too high safety look, and they struggled with that. Now, granted, I get it. Their best wide receiver, Jackson Smith and the Jibba, however you say his name, he was hurt. I get that. They were able to make plays in the clutch whenever they needed. I mean, Emeka, they have other wide receivers outside of Smith and Jibba. So I'm not really worried about the wide receiver core. However, that too high safety look with the soft zone and all the rest of the stuff, it did kind of make me have flashbacks of OU. I was like, do you think CJ Stroud will struggle with that for the rest of the year or not?
I mean, the interesting thing is the reason why I don't know how I stand on Ohio State's offense right now, and that's why I took the position I did, is they started off not great last year offensively. Yeah. It kind of took them some time. And for whatever reason, once the season got on, they were humming. Now, whether we'll see that this year or not, I don't know. To your point, games could have been put on film, and now there's a bit of a blueprint out there. I just know that the last time that we saw them play last season, which, in fairness, it's a different season, so we can't base anything off of last season. The way that offense responded against Utah, who's a disciplined defense, they were really playing high-quality football. I know they have the talent to score with a lot of teams in college football. Will it come together, I think, is the biggest question. What are you thinking, Jance?
For me, it's like, how good would Notre Dame be? I think that's really the question for me in this game. Because I like Ohio State, and that front seven I thought did a really, really good job, especially limiting the opportunities for that team. But I mean, do we really believe in Tyler what's the name? Tyler Buchner, the Notre Dame quarterback? Do we really believe in his ability to really get that? I think he could be a serviceable quarterback, but how good can he get that team to be? Because I saw a lot of mistakes, honestly, from him. I think the offensive line, obviously, they did at least some key pieces there. The receiving core has never been really good. It's always been a team that's relied solely on the tight ends, mostly with Michael Mayer, who was pretty much damn near double team for the majority of this game. I'm not particularly too sure. I think, again, and when I take a look at the schedule, I think that there could be some teams that could potentially sneak up on them, but we're not really going to find out until they play Michigan. I think by the time that Michigan game rolls around against possibly the best offensive line in college football, against a true running attack that we all know can pretty much gut and dash a majority of teams in college football besides Alabama or Georgia, that's the true test I needed to see, because that's why Ohio State couldn't get to the playoffs. When they went up against physical offensive lines, whether it was Oregon from last year, who had one of the best rushing attacks in college football, or whether it was Michigan, those two teams had averaged over 250 yards rushing. Each and every single one of them. Matter of fact, Oregon had over 300 yards rushing in that game. And they simply just controlled the clock, and they simply just destroyed Ohio State's front seven. Now, I think that defense can be a little bit more improved. I definitely believe that they have the talent to be, for that defense to be national championship caliber. I just need to see it. And I don't know if Notre Dame, especially when we all know that Notre Dame is in that rebuilding phase right now, from the amount of talent they was able to lose, especially on the offensive line and in the running game. I'm just not sure if, although Notre Dame did the best they could defensively, I was pretty impressed of how that, like Chris said, how that cover two was able to kind of limit and frustrate CJ Stroud, especially, again, Jackson Smith and Jim, which, by the way, Ohio State fans, welcome to the world of an Alabama fan of what we had to deal with when we had to lose not one but two of our best receivers going into the national championship against one of the best defenses of all time. But again, I'll regress to that. But still, that just the way how Ohio State was able to operate defensively it's still, I didn't really see that much. Again, it was an impressive performance. I thought it was a really, really solid game. I just need to see it be done against a team with a better offensive line and a rushing attack that we all know last year was, hindered Ohio State from making the playoffs because of that.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to send it to you to talk about Oklahoma so you can send us on home. Let me know your thoughts on Oklahoma's opener. What stood out to you?
Man, so overall, man, I gave them a B minus simply because it wasn't perfect, but it was damn near close. But it was just about as we expected. I thought that first off, let's just start with the offense. Offensively, Gabriel looked great to open the game. Kind of had a lapse there where the play calling just wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily say accurate, but we got back to running the ball just to see. Jay said it. Shout out to Jay on Fair Sports, but I think he said it best. To see Eric Gray rush for 100 yards in an OU jersey, that's encouraging. I think Braden Willis was on his podcast, and he talked about how they ran the same run play 20 plus times. So
Gray's got that juice. I've been trying to tell everybody that would listen, get him in the right offense. He's got juice.
He looked great. He looks the part. It kind of looks like how he was being used out there in high school, to be honest with you. I mean, he's going to be used all over. I mean, and you saw some of the similar concepts for him, so it wasn't like it was too complicated. I mean, they put him in some of the same positions that he was in when he was running H-back on the Raleigh system. But definitely like what I saw from Gabriel. I think Gabriel's decision making. Want to see him be able to, kind of hit guys when they're open or whatnot, but it's going to come with time, especially with some of the routes and some of the things that they were running.
Deep ball takes a while to develop.
Yeah. Offensive line, because of Morris's suspension, we're kind of we're shuffling right now. We're shuffling guys. I mean, hell, you had Anton Harrison playing right tackle, and then you had Guyton playing left tackle. And it just kind of, I don't know. It's still going to take some time for them to gel as well, but that's, you get Kent State next week, so it's a good opportunity to go out there and get some more game reps. So offensively, I was pleased. I was happy. Definitely like to see us run the ball the way that we did, and just be the more physical team. Defensively, I would say tackling was definitely great. That's what really stood out.
Defensive front was good, real good.
Yes. See guys flying around the ball like not only Danny Stutzman, Agwebu, but also Billy Bowman. I know it was kind of a quiet game for our secondary, to be honest with you. We all thought that Key may have a bigger impact than what he had, but at the same time, you're just encouraged to see what's going on with the defense. They look more disciplined. I think that's kind of the key word right there, discipline. Also, one of the things, and Ty, you said it plenty of times, Jens, you said it as well. Venables' defense is set up to where if you understand it, if you're doing what you need to do, he will put you in position to make plays on the ball, to make plays out there. So it's kind of different than the speed D, regime that we just had. No knock on that. Defensive line played great, but you still want to see them be able to kind of dominate more of their one-on-one matchups now that we're not twisting and stunning so much. One of the things, my biggest takeaway, there's two big takeaways from this game. So one is that, one takeaway. The biggest takeaway from this game is the fact that you were able to limit their offense. Hardison's a really good quarterback. Been saying that for a few weeks. He's a really good quarterback. And so for you to be able to play kind of a soft zone, even play like a base 4-3, just your basic coverage plays that you're going to play, it was really encouraging to see us limit their offense, because UTEP loves throwing the deep ball. They love to go vertical, and they love to run their screens as well. And to see us blow up their screens, bubble screens, jailbreak screens, all types of screens they were trying to run and trying to set up, but we just had them on the island by themselves. But to see that, you were definitely pleased, because you're like, hey, we're keeping things vanilla, but we're able to limit this team and tell them, hey, if you want to score, you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to work this field. So that was pretty encouraging. That was my biggest takeaway from the game.
Yeah, I think for me, we have some people talking about offensive line penalties. That's to be expected during the early portion of a season with a team that's going to run tempo. Don't be surprised at all if you have a bit more penalties on the offensive line through your first 3 games. Do not be surprised. That's not indicative of non-discipline. That's not indicative of anything other than the adjusting to the tempo you're running. And I said this in the video, but you can practice tempo. You can use it in scrimmages, but until you get in front of an opponent that's going to do things differently than your defense that you see every single day, you're never going to be able to replicate things like the timing on tempo or even deep ball accuracy, which is why I wasn't concerned when Gabriel missed on 2 or 3 deep balls. We look at the Alabama game. Bryce Young missed on 2 or 3 deep balls. Why? A bunch of new receivers. It's week 1. I'm not surprised in the least that you're missing on a deep ball. Come week 4 or 5, if those same misses are happening, we'll have a different conversation. But
yeah,
I'm just about out of energy, boys. So if y'all have any final things to add, I'll let y'all go ahead and take it home.
No, I'm straight, man. Like I said, we got to get you some rest, man.
Yeah. So let the people know where they can find you.
Chris, you want to start over? All right, yeah. So yeah. Again, you guys can follow me on Twitter, Jen716, Buffalo Fanbase Sports, every Tuesday. Not this week, of course, because I got, obviously I got some stuff to do. But for the most part, every other Tuesday, you can find me at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard, 6:00 Central, with me and my co-host Kari Demos. We like to break down college sports, NFL talk, pretty much on the way for Thursday. Bills, which we will crush the Rams, by the way. So yeah, we're just gonna get that out the way anyway. But no, for the most part, YouTube, Gen Sports as well, college football breakdowns, NFL breakdowns, all that type of jazz. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yep, Chris, what about yourself?
Hey, you guys can find me at the Horns Down Pod with my guy at Seth Oliveris. Definitely follow him, follow our podcast. We got a lot of great things going on. Got a YouTube channel, Horns Down Podcast, which you can find us wherever, whatever podcast platform that you use, whether it's Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. Also, I'm starting up a new podcast for my Cardinals and my Patriots. Jance will be on that show for sure. We're talking AFC East. We're talking AFC East, trying to get him to become a Patriots fan. But yeah, that's where you guys can find me at.
Tragic. Absolutely tragic. Downright disrespectful. All right, everybody. I'm sorry to cut it short tonight. I just need to go sit down or lay down or something. I'm wiped. But we'll see y'all on the stream later this week. Be tuned for an announcement because I have something being planned that I think y'all are going to love for one of the biggest games this weekend, that Texas-Alabama game. So be sure to stay tuned to the notifications because you'll get an update on that. I got something planned I know y'all are going to love. But with that, we'll see y'all later. That's it. See you.